Necromunda Sump Sea build. Yes, it is indeed. It's been a bit of an odd summer, to be quite honest, and I would like to start off by saying thank you to all the people who have sent me messages through the community page and otherwise, and through my Facebook page for bits and pieces. I lost my mum this summer, so I've been a bit out of sorts, to be quite honest. It was kind of expected, but it's still very hard to deal with. But having said that, we've had other complications too. I had to go to the Bloodstock Music Festival. It looked like this. And this, oh, and that. We had a great time. But, you know, hey. And then, of course, we added this little fella into the mix. Everybody meet Chewy. Everybody, this is Chewy. Chewy, yes. Say hello, everybody. Okay, so we're about 9 weeks old now and causing a bit of mayhem. You've been part of our distraction this summer, haven't you? Yes, you have. Go on. Right, but now it's time to get back on with some model making, and this model is going to be an addition to my Necromunda Sump Sea table. I want to keep adding larger tiles. I'm not doing 1 foot tiles for this, I'm doing 2 foot tiles. Most of the other bits you've seen have been 2 foot tiles. The last one, the Sumpsea Fisher Scum Island, was on a 2 foot by 1 foot tile, and this is going to be a 2 foot by 1 foot tile as well. Got a few ideas for this, and I'm going to mess around at the start of this video and just try with different ideas. I want to come up with a kind of Cawdor inspired junk pile, Junkberg, semi-submerged kind of tile with quite a lot of water on it, using to enable boats to move around and have platforms over water and that kind of thing. So we're going to see how we go with that. I've got lots of Cawdor figures, and I've got some other bits and pieces too, some laser cut MDF boat models, or a boat model I'll show you in a minute. It's quite cool, that I'm hoping I'm going to be able to incorporate into this as well. I like the idea each time I produce a new tile with a new location, there'll be it's characterful, it fits the kind of narrative, and there's at least one kind of mode of transport that kind of goes with it, to enable the characters of players to get there one way or another. So I have no idea how many videos this is going to be. Probably, I'd say 1, but you know me, it might end up being 2. Also, at the same time, I am of course also going to be making videos about the winners of my first Patreon competition as well, which is to win a piece of scenery made by me, and they had to suggest and design and come up with the ideas for what that piece of scenery is. I'm not going to tell you what that is here, you'll have to watch that one too, but I'm going to be making that video whilst I'm making this series of videos, so they might come out staggered. We'll just have to see how that all goes. So hang on to your hats, yeah, I'm going to have to clear up the work desk, because at the minute it's covered with all sorts of other cloth. So from that point of view, bear with me, be back soon. Okay, so I don't really have a plan for this model at all. I'm using, oh come on, no, you see I've got the, yeah. I'm using one of my 2 foot by 1 foot boards. Of course, as 2 foot by 1 foot boards go, they aren't actually 2 foot by 1 foot, because I relied on somebody at some kind of like DIY place to cut it for me, so they aren't exactly kind of accurate. I think it's become the holy grail of my life now, getting exactly the same cut size modular boards, but hey ho, whatever. So this is about 12 inches across and 23 and 7/8 inches long. My theory, my plan, had been to make some scenery for these guys. Cawdor, the rag and bone men of the Underhive, if you like. And I love the idea of having kind of like Junkbergs. And having recently, or not too long ago, got the Orc Mech Boys kind of like kit for 40k to use all the tools from, you get all these brilliant piles of junk that I thought might be quite cool if they are placed on as kind of like coming out of the top of the water, so they're kind of like piles of junk that have been flooded. I also wanted to include this. This is a Sarissa Precision laser cut kit, a Japanese landing craft from the Second World War. I looked at this picture here, right, and I thought on the website, I thought, oh, it looks pretty cool. I wonder if I could even like put a container on here and have a kind of floating caravan from a Cawdor, and they go around and that kind of thing. And I'd like to do that, but then when it arrived and I kind of turned it around this way, I'm thinking this model ain't going to be big enough for that plan. I am going to make this model to go with this terrain, and I'm not going to do it as a separate video like the sump fishing vessel, because that was quite a big build. This is mostly going to be assemble the MDF thing and see what it looks like, and then kind of Necromunda it up a little bit. So this I'm going to include as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut these big boys off and see how they work, because I quite liked the idea of having 2 or 3 little lumps of stuff coming up out the sump, and then walkways in between, all that kind of thing. But I do also have another idea, which I might either do instead of this or combine with this. I'll tell you about that in a minute. First though, I'm going to get my clippers out, clip these off and see what these look like on the board. Bear with me. Clippers. Ah, clippers. This is my initial idea then. When I was thinking about this, I was thinking of literally having these big piles of junk from the York MacBride's workshop, which I really love, because you really can just sit there and look at all the different things they've taken off other models and piled them together and made kind of like big piles of waste out of them. I like the idea of just having these as kind of like the tops of piles of junk that are underneath the water, or the water flooded up round. These are the very top, and I just have walkways in between. And then I was going to have this boat, but I mean, that might still kind of work. I could have a platform in between that and use that as the kind of like basis there, and then use this thing. So I think while I've got these on the board, and where they go exactly is a bit irrelevant for a minute. That's not my dog making that noise, by the way. I'd like to point that out. It's next door's bloody dog. I think what I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to have a go at putting this together as well and seeing what that looks like. I'm just thinking it's going to be too little. Let's get cracking and have a look. But I've opened it up and I'm pleasantly surprised, because inside there's a whole bunch more stuff. So these are only the wooden decks, but actually it looks like it might be quite big. I'm bloody hoping there's some directions. Oh, here we go. Okay. Glue the rear deck mount support. Oh, Jesus. Okay, this looks like quite a nice kit from Sarissa. Here are all the instructions. Check them out. Look, those. And these. And, and that. Right, okay, it's quite a lot. I'm going to stick it together and I'll come back to you. Talk quietly amongst yourselves. Alright, so I'm not sure what I've done wrong here. It's going together quite well. Look, there it is. And I've assembled the whole thing, and this superstructure is supposed to go around both sides, and it's almost impossible to get it wrong because it's only got these pegs it can sit on, so it can only do this, and the same on this side. But somehow the cardboard bendy bits don't actually come close to fitting at the back. That's a bit weird. I hope I haven't deeply offended anybody from Sarissa if I cock this up, but and I haven't made many MDF models, but blimey, this shouldn't be that complicated. And I'm only doing what it says in the instructions, and there's a great big gap at the back, Mum, and I don't know what to do about it. Actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do about it. I'm going to bodge it and put a thing over there so it doesn't matter too much. Plates with rivets and stuff. But that does seem really weird that actually a precision kit like this, and it's almost impossible to cock up because of where the holes are and where the tabs go, but somehow I've managed to cock it up. Well done me. Oh, I'm some kind of special genius. Hurrah. Anyway, nevertheless, keep going. Okay, so a few bits that went wrong, And with apologies to the manufacturers, Sarissa Precision, I've managed to put this model together with anything apart from being precise. This back end of this bus now looks distinctly not precise and stuck together. However, I've decided I'm going to get around that in a proper Necromunda manner by botching something over the back of it. However, it's not bad for a kind of little vessel for scooting around on the sumping. I don't think it doesn't have to. It's not as big as my the coaster stunty. It's not as chunky as the fishing vessel, but it's still quite as long, and it will get 2 or 3 figures on this. I mean, from that point of view, it's quite neat. It's also got this cool little working landing ramp, which kind of like moves up and down, and even more so, actually nicely folds over and then sits, which will make quite a cool platform for figures to stand in the front. So I think my initial plan had been to put a container on the top of it and have it kind of like moving around like a rag and bone man, kind of like come gypsy caravan. But yeah, I just don't think it's going to be big enough to do that. But actually, in the context of this, the ideas for this model, which included junk piles and the like, well, it might work quite well as it goes, islands and walkways and things like that, and being able to chug around the junk piles. So I think I might work on that, see how we go. Problem is, I do have a really another cool idea for another Sump Sea kind of piece of terrain, which I thought will work really well with this, with semi-submerged walls and things. But I think I'm going to save that for another model, and I think I'm going to go with this Junkberg kind of idea for the minute, because what I want is some pretty fast terrain to expand my sump quite quickly, and I think there's a chance that I might be able to do that with this. So I think I'm going to wheel some polystyrene, maybe XPS foam, 5-10mm XPS foam, to build up some islands on these guys, and then have junk piles coming out of the water, and have a boat slop around on it, and maybe the odd rickety walkway in between. So I think it's going to be a pretty simple build compared to some of my other more extravagant kind of like headaches, but that means it might only be one video as well. So hey, let's see what happens. Yeah. So I think that I might actually not go with the submerged walls idea. I'm going to save that, although it's a really banging idea. I'm very pleased with it. I think what I am going to do is I'm starting to like the look of the little boat and the islands, the Junkbergs, if you like, and the odd rickety walkway, or the odd kind of like hovel out over the sump. I want to get some pretty fast sump boards done, so I can start to expand the sump games. And I think this will be quite a good solution. It doesn't have to be, not every board I make has to be terribly, terribly complicated, he said. Famous last words. You never know, this might only be one video. Right, so next steps then, I've got to suitably Necromundaize my Japanese infantry landing craft for Cawdor, which shouldn't be too difficult. I mean, that just needs a session of digging through the cack. And then we also need to get on with the Junkberg. We also need to get on with the Junkbergs and the sump water. I think I'm going to raise some of them up a little bit and add more junk to them. Certainly this one help make it more of a feature, piling up. But I really like the idea of loads and loads of cack just kind of like pouring down into the water, and these guys living amongst it. Maybe this is where they kind of bring all their goodies and dump it out in the sump, safe from most gangs, till they're ready to use it. They definitely need some kind of dwelling over some part of the water. Thinking. I think I'm going to get on for the moment. Get on with actually thinking about this watery kind of section. I want to be able to keep it so I can move a boat in it or around it or whatever else. I want to keep some bits so when it butts up with other tiles, there's quite a lot of space to move around. but some of this is kind of small, so I'm going to build these up, I think, a little bit on polystyrene, or at least a couple of them. If I do that, they'll give extra height to different bits and pieces too. So I need to find some, probably the easiest thing to do, I've got 10mm XPS foam, which I can cut and shape roughly underneath that. And then we will just literally get cack out of the cack box and pile it up so it's pouring all over. Then I need to come up with some kind of walkways that can go between, at least one of them. And we want some kind of hovel. I don't know, I've got to achieve that. So let's do the scrap bergs first, and then go from there. So polystyrene required, 10mm XPS foam. I'm going to take a bit of the iron, draw around the outside, cut it out, sculpt it a little bit, stick it on, dig in the cack. Right, so now I've cut my little 7mm polystyrene irons. Only 2 of them, I'm not going to bother with that one, so I'll get a bit of height. And I've kind of placed them roughly where I think I want them on the board. This way I'm going to get a fair amount of empty board over here for chugging boats around in. I'll be able to drive the boat through a bit there, but I think I'm probably going to end up with some kind of platform in between these two here. Maybe this is where the hovel will go over here as well. So next thing I've got to do is I'm going to stick polystyrene down to bases, and then the Orky junk on top of that down to the polystyrene. Going to use Gorilla wood glue for that, and I'm going to stick this one down as well. Probably going to just use a all-purpose solvent for that. And then it's going to be time to find extra junk, which means we shall have to go digging through the cack. Digging through the cack. I'm going to go digging through the cack. We are going to go digging through the cack for stuff to go on the islands, and also while I'm digging through the cack for stuff to go on the islands, I might as well find cack to go on this bad boy as well, especially to cover up the crappy bit at the back that I haven't done properly. So yeah, let's get some cack boxes out after we've glued the islands down, and then while the islands are gluing down, we can go digging through that cack. Get your priorities right. Glue in first. Okay. Right. Where's the fucking glue? Cack on the pole. I need loads of little bits, loads of big bits, loads of random bits. Cack. Actually, this would be quite good for getting rid of bits of busted sprue too. Cack. Cut off cack. Got so many boxes of cack to go through. Cack. Spikewood skulls on it. It doesn't get more fucking wham than that. Cack. Oh, it's got a Necron head on it. Bit of wheel. A bit of engine block. Knackered ladder. You get the idea. And this is what happens when the cack box gets knocked over. Bit of a nightmare. And then, to compound the issue, the cack snuffling puppy turns up. And going to have to pick up the cack pretty soon because he's going to eat bloody everything. Okay, so that's some of the cack that I've dug. I'm going to need probably lots more as it goes. Those of you who watched my videos before will know that one of the things I like is to build a narrative, or the narrative is really important for a piece of scenery to me. Sometimes the piece of scenery comes out of a narrative idea, and other times the narrative kind of builds as I make the model, and in this case that's what's going on here. I'm thinking that this group of Cawdor go trolling around the sump in their rag and bone vehicle, and then they bring all the stuff they've found back to this place, these Junkbergs that they're building up, because then they can dump it here and keep it safe from most people, because most people can't get out on the surface of the sump, so it makes sense for them to keep it here and then sift through it and pick out all the best stuff. So I want to make sure I cover these islands and bits and pieces with lots of cack. But anything else, I'd like to get rid of and make sure that we lose some of the shape of the obvious Orc Mech Boy piles. So it's not just kind of like standard kit, but we've added stuff to it. So I think I'm going to probably sand these 2 islands first of all, which is sticking quite nicely, and then we're going to stick cack on top of it. Right, so that's polystyrene covered in sand, and that way there, when I start sticking all the little bits of cack on top of it, when that's all completely dry, then that won't matter if I leave bits exposed underneath, which is good. And while that's drying, because it's going to take a little while, we're going to 40k up this bad boy with bits of cack. Okay, here we are then after the first night of kind of sticking. I had to stop because I had to let all the glue go off on these islands over here, which they have done now. So now I can start to think about other structures. I'm really pleased with my boat. I could still add a few bits to 40k up even more. In fact, what I'm probably going to do is I might add some bits from the Cawdor sprues, or even Redemption sprues, but I'm going to hang on to some of those because I want to do something over here. I've added a little platform on the end of the junk pile here. Right. And a pipe here. And now my main concern or thing to do is I want to build a walkway from here to here, but I want it to be tall enough for this boat to be able to pass underneath it. Doesn't matter if all boats can't pass underneath it, but I want this boat to be able to turn around and get through there. So I want to kind of like bridge the walkway, that kind of thing. And then I'll probably have a little low level walkway across here, and then I can think about the junk that's going on here too. That's the next stage. So I did loads and loads of digging through the cack, as you saw, and got all sorts of components and bits that I might use. Not that I know what I've gone and done with them now. I've kind of like going to cut them all out. I am going to probably use this metal mesh for a lot of the flooring on the platform over the top. Yep, nope, totally don't know what I've done with those. So I'm thinking that the last part of the structure is going to be made up of these bits of sprue, which I use these a lot. You'll see lots of these on my models, and I think most of these have come from Zone Mortalis sprues. But it's a real shame not to use all that plastic, and they've got good girder structures and that kind of thing, so that's pretty neat, and I want to have them as supporting the floor. But I think what I've gone and done is taken a couple of Mechanicus type tall walkways, cut them down, so they're not going to be ridiculously tall, but they're going to be coming out of the water, suggesting that they go down lower, and all that area is kind of like flooded now with sump goop. So I'm thinking of putting them on here. My thoughts are to have them kind of like that. I'm going to sink one in. I need to cut out some of this island here. Doesn't matter if they're not neat and they don't line up. I want to definitely sink that into the island, so the island is around it, or the junk is piled up around it. So this thing has got junk just piled up and grown up around it, and it's there from that point of view. And then I'm going to have that one over the other side, and that will give me enough structure to have platform and hovel between. Will look pretty cool. Some kind of Cawdor shrine, I think, as well. So the first thing I need to do now is dig into these bits of polystyrene here. This is where I'm adapting my design as I go. So this stands flat down on the surface, but with island all around it. So I'm going to mark that and cut that. Okay, so we now have bridge stuck in place, cutting 2 heavy girders across between the 2 uprights. I'm going to stick some of these rickety girders across here. Might have to cut one to fit. Might go this way around, possibly. And I'm going to use some of this mesh to make a floor. Probably, thinking about it, going to extend it one way. I like the idea of having a Cawdor type shrine and hovel. I don't know if that's possible. More Cawdor. Let's see what we can come up with. More fiddling around is required, I think. Just with general plastic crap. Down here I've got this bit of girder coming down. It's going to go into the water, and I'm going to have another bit coming up over the other way, as opposed to just having a nice flat kind of walking surface. I like the idea, baby. Ladders going across at different angles. That'll give a nice rickety kind of feel to the whole thing. That might be quite neat. Then I can start putting more cack on. Right, let's focus first of all though on building a hovel or shrine or something up the top here. Right, so I dumped the wire mesh idea for the moment because this is not going to have contact with the metal to stick super glue wire down to the plastic, but the bridge is starting to kind of like coming on. I'm building little levels on the side that would indicate where people could climb up on both sides, and I'm just adding stuff to it, relying on polystyrene cement to do what it does, which is weld plastic together, which is great. I'm going to end up with this weird structure with a way shrine kind of thing on it, using one of these shrine malarkey things, and I'm going to get candles and stuff and put them all around it. I'm going to build that kind of here, I think. I really like the idea of this having some kind of hovel type affair on it, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to work yet. I'm just going to keep adding layers and bits out to it. So I'll have bits jutting out across here, I think, supporting that, and we've got bits of barricade and making floor and walls and that kind of thing. But it doesn't have to be a hovel. I think some ways a Cawdor kind of shrine might be more appropriate. But we'll see how we go. Keep going, keep going. Half the trick of this kind of job is finding things to prop other stuff up whilst the glue goes off. So this bit here isn't staying, but it is holding up this bit here. Whoops, there he goes. Fuck. Mr. Butterfingers. Got to hold that thing in position while it glues, otherwise it doesn't work. And then not get too gung-ho with it. I need the glue to go off. What I've done now is that I was producing a really good bond over there, and now it ain't. It's rather precariously balanced, mind you. But this is going to give quite a nice little archway. I've got this bit of girder, it's going to come up out the sump, and then they're going to be climbing around. I'm going to try and leave that with enough flat platform there for a figure to go on. This is almost finished ubiquitous Cawdor. So he'll be able to stand on there right, and he'll be able to stand on there right, and up here right. Lots of platforms. Problems with these big piles of junk is there are very good places to put figures, so I'm actually making flat areas to stand the figures on. But in the meantime, I'm fucking up sticking this thing together, something wrong.
There we go. I need to get that under there like that. Could do with the odd thing propping up under there as well. Right, I'm going to turn this round while this is drying. I'm going to turn this ball around now. Do something over here, this bit over here. So you can see here again, I've got a platform here, which is the way up onto this bridge. I need to do something on the end here, which is all gooey because I've had glue on it. And I could do with the odd other platform down here. This is going to have junk on it going down into the water. Well, in some ways, so that's there, that's quite cool. Might try and bring out a bit more level out here, or actually across the top of this would be good. Because at the moment that's awkward to put models on. I might cut some of that down and put a flat platform on there. Yeah, see what we can do. Okay, so this sprue is from the Wasteland kind of like Underhive outpost thing. I totally haven't built any of the outpost fortification thing, but it's provided so many cool pieces. I might have to get another one and actually use it for the actual model intended for, but right now I'm going to use these doors. They'll make pretty cool platforms or walls for my shrine, and this doorway here as well is quite neat, so I'm going to cut all those off. And it's also got other girders and bits and pieces which are cool for hanging lights and stuff on. So yeah, it's been a really good kit for kit bashing with. This is the end of evening 3. Now I've got my bergs on, and I've got my bridge mostly rickety done and made. Lots of decent platform for fighting on. I'm going to put some more wallage at this end. I've got to put up some more ladders and bits and pieces on both sides. But I've got plenty of kind of flat surfaces now for figures to stand on, and could do with a bit more structure underneath, I think, to make it look like it's more solid than it is, although the polystyrene cement holds everything together beautifully. I need to let all this actually go off overnight now. Right, so as is always the way, you always change your mind with these things. I pulled this apart, I've cut bits off. I've taken out the little shiny thing because I've decided I'm going to add this door from the Fortress set, which is all kind of churchy. I like the idea of them having found the Cawdor, having found this kind of churchy looking door, all gothic and archy. They go and get that as the backdrop to their shrine. So it would kind of like make sense to drag that up from some wreck or ruin somewhere, and then they get their icon they're going to place in front of it. And then I'll make some little bits. I'll find a brazier and various other things that stand on either side of it. In fact, chop that back a bit so it goes more flush against the wall. The poly cement, go on you bugger. Okay, here we go for a major digging through the cack. This is proper cack box, dating back to the 1990s, and I'm literally going to take a handful of this stuff to stick on anywhere on my trash islands. And I'm going to use metal components, plastic components, all sorts of things. I'm literally just going to then cover the thing in super glue, pile it on, see what I can come up with. Doors and hatches and bits of skeleton, guns, boxes, arm pats, guns from other things. the idea with the islands is that they're very just much piles of junk with Cawdors scabbied, found, stuck on their junk scows, brought back and just piled up. Most of the time they don't even know what they've got, it's just old and junky and might be useful. So they just bring it, gather it together, and one day they might find a use for it. They're like the hoarders of the underhive. Different cack boxes. So this is my junk pile. You saw it was like originally with a tiny little bit of Mech Boys junk, and now this is just all the other junk that I'm kind of like piling up on top. I'm using really fine grained sand to help the super glue bond together, and that will give me rust as well at the same time. And I've also been doing the same at the same time on this pile over here too, so we're going to end up with much bigger junk piles, which is really cool. Gonna like look at this, and it won't be difficult to paint because most of it will just be brown and metal and rust, and then I'll be able to pick out the odd detail, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to carry on making my junk islands, and then I'm going to go back to working on the shrine over here. It's worth pointing out here that I'm using cheapy super glue, and I got gold, but it's clearing out the sinuses alright. So make sure when you're doing this kind of thing, and you use an absolute ton of it, that you work in a well ventilated area, because it's good stuff. Actually, the tricky part about making this kind of scenery is ensuring you get enough flat bits to stand miniatures on. It's dead easy to pile stuff up, but I want to make sure I've got enough flattish surfaces that I can stand figures on without too much bother. So this is looking quite good, this island here. There's quite a lot of flat around, which means that it's still very much usable in the game, which is definitely an important kind of issue to think about. Playability is definitely an issue when you are making this kind of terrain. There's no point in making something, I think, that looks amazing if it's just gonna not work, because it doesn't kind of like allow you to place figures. As soon as you have a piece of terrain where all you have to do is move figures around the outside of it and not move figures on it, over and through it, that piece of terrain becomes pointless as far as I'm concerned. You might as well be playing around cereal boxes. So half the fun of this is making sure I've got flat surfaces that look cool, that work really well, but are actually going to make the whole piece of scenery usable. Okay, so the problem with doing this kind of thing is actually knowing when to stop. And I think I'm going to stop about now. I've now completely changed all these junk piles. I've got walkways in here, glue going off all over the place, but it's all pretty cool. I'm really pleased with how the junk piles look. Okay, so now the thing I'm working on is my Cawdor shrine. I've decided to not really do a hovel on this. I'm just going to have a shrine on the top of the bridge. I've mounted a crossbow here, and I've got various bits of off the Cawdor sprue and scenery sprues and bits and pieces. Here is a brazier from an old Warhammer Empire kit, which is quite nice. And this painted is going to be really hard to pick up. I've really struggled to try and get it kind of like in focus so you can see it. So I hope this is kind of like making sense what's going on here. But if we look at the islands and bits and pieces here, now we can see all these piles of junk. I've got to pull all this away now, clear all the sand out. I have made sure that my garbage, my scavenger scow, scrap scow, can just about drive through there. It'll take a hell of a pilot to get it through there, but it will. I've got to add some ladders. Got Got to add some ladders either side to the bridge. But this is actually turning out to be quite a cool little piece of scenery. It's taking ages. It's not kind of complicated, architecturally complicated like some of the other models, but just all those individual pieces being stuck on. It's really helped clear out some of my big bits box. Not that you could tell, because the bits box is still full of cack. But it's going to look really good. Good bit of a challenge to paint, apart from the fact it's all going to just go silver and then brown and rust. But so yeah, I've got to finish putting ladders on, and then I've got to put the sump surface onto this board, and then it's pretty much done as it goes. I keep adding bits to my boat, extra plates here, and loads of sand, because that's all going to get painted up as rust. I've put a little fender on here because clearly they'd be worried about the quality of their vessel and not wanting to scratch the paintwork, banging it against quaysides and the like. Right, let's find some ladders. I'm done with the model making. Everything's stuck together. Great big piles of junk. It would look pretty cool. This would have looked pretty cool. It's just piles of junk on a zone mortalis tile, but this is the sump, so we're now going to make it sumpy. So the only job left to do now is to add sump water. It's going to be a two-stage process. First of all, I've got to blend all the islands and bridge and the like into the sump, and then I'll cover the main sump water. The main sump water will be done with tissue paper and Mod Podge, my normal method, which we'll get to in a little while. The blending of sump water and all around the shores is going to be done with flexible filler. This is home-based ready mix flexible filler. You could probably do it with filler your mix up, and I'm basically going to be putting on big strings of stuff around the shores, and using a spatula, balsa wood spatula, to get it into all the nooks and crannies and up and over things. It will help to take the edge off some of the lumps of model. Start to blend it in to the edges. It will look particularly good, but I think when we do bits down here, see how we go. So it's going to take a little while. Here I've got my filler, and I'm using just a broken piece of balsa wood here to smooth the filler on and around. It's a bit of a sticky job, and if necessary I might mix some PVA in with it, make it just a little bit more liquid. But this is where the sump is slopping up against the islands. I can blend stuff in like that. I give a little bit of, don't want too much wave action. I don't really see you imagine the sump to be a very wavy kind of place. There's not much in the way of weather. It might be tidal, I suppose, and surge, or you might get more when it kind of floods up, but I don't really see a lot in the way of waves. Although vessels making wake, I suppose, will make enough waves around the edges of these little islets. So this way I don't have to try and get my tissue paper all in there. Tissue paper I'll blend over the edges of the filler. Well, that'll be fine. The chances are you will have seen me put sump water onto boards. I could do it exactly the same way as I always do it, I think. If this is the first of my Sumpsea videos you've seen, then this will be the first time you've seen me put sump water on. And as I said earlier, I'm going to use tissue paper, doesn't matter what colour, and I'm going to use matte Mod Podge. Very, very simple process. Tissue paper's cool because it gives us a bit of a texture as we go. I'm going to start off by covering large areas. So what I need is a big brush. Well, look at that, it's about, well, certainly over an inch. I'm going to stick loads of Mod Podge on the board. What's nice with this is the fact that it's going to cover over all the edges of where I've got filler. I'm going to try and blend the filler and the tissue paper together. So I'm putting glue down on the board first of all. Now if you use straight PVA, this is a great way of helping get warp out your boards. Doesn't work quite so well with Mod Podge, because Mod Podge doesn't contract quite so much as straight PVA, but it does a little, so I'm hoping it's going to lift the ends of the boards a little to help flatten them a bit as well. So there we go. Glue all over the bit of the board I'm aiming to stick tissue paper on, and in this case I'm using one grey bit of tissue paper. Well, I think I'm going to go across a bit of an angle like that. Pull it out. I don't want to get straight kind of creases in it, but I'm quite happy to have creases in it. Put that on. And then I am going to glue over the top. Glue it all down. Okay, so here is the model. Sump water on, ready to paint. You can still, of course, see all the individual components and bits and pieces at the moment, so we know what's coming next. Next is the priming phase. Sump Junk Scow, all ready to paint too. Quite an interesting little set this. So let's get out in the garage, get some black spray out, and spray this bad boy. Okay, so now we've had a black spray, which is cool, and a metallic spray. Now to get on and paint this bad boy. First thing I'm going to do is wield a big, really big brush and a load of Mournfang brown. I'm just going to dry brush the whole thing Mournfang brown. Start on rust and mank. See where that gets me. Oh, this is a bit, I've got to confess, this is the bit that I find really tedious. It's actually, having built all the thing, which is the creative bit, is the painting of it, which I just want done. Especially as this is so much scrap metal. It's that kind of thing you just could keep going and going and going, and I just want to get it done and done and done. Yeah, we're kind of getting there. Shrine is coming on. I've got candles dripping away and flames. I've got a cheeky Enforcer's helmet in here, which I had to go and check what colour I painted my Enforcers. And stripes are on it. It needs to be white. But yeah, we're getting there. I haven't even thought about painting the sump water yet. Sump water at the moment is just providing me with a palette where I can mix stuff. Thank heavens for Agrax Earthshade toning down everything I've painted so far. And while I'm waiting for a whole load of Agrax Earthshade to dry on that, I'm painting this now, which again is just dull. That was sprayed black, sprayed with some metallic paint or another that I kick around the garage, and now it's getting a really heavy dry brush of Mournfang brown. And I'm going to pick out some colours now, and then going to pick out the rusty stuff, and then yeah, so here we go. This is boring. I just want it done. I want it done. I want to be able to get all the scenery out and put it all together and look at it and go, ah, cool, what am I going to do next? In the meantime, Cawdor garbage scour. Okay, now we are going to paint the sump water. Yes, we are. Because until I've painted the sump water, I can't see how much more this bloody model needs painting. So, frankly, I'm getting bored of painting bits of rusty metal. We're using this time Mod Podge gloss. Galleria acrylic. That's Winsor & Newton green. Still quite expensive acrylic paint, but compared to using Citadel stuff or other miniature paint figures paints, it's not. And then I'm probably going to chuck, so that's what's that, Farlow green, and then I'm going to chuck some olive green in as well to mix it up and make it kind of like some watery. See how it works out, and then yeah, see how close we are to finishing this damn thing. All right, so this model is about as done, I think, as it's going to get. Sump water's still wet, so I can't touch it. But I painted the sump water on, and the interesting thing about all my sump water is the fact that I think at some point, see what I did there, at some point I'm going to have to get all my sump boards out and get one lot of paint and paint them all the same way, because I think that each time I've painted Sump Water, I've painted it a slightly different recipe, so they're all slightly different colours. Not that it matters too much, but I'd like the whole thing to have the same effect so it all goes together. So I don't know how green one is compared to the next. I painted the Sump Water because I wanted to stop painting the Junkbergs. The problem with a model like this and a paint job like this is the fact that you could just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, picking out all this stuff. And what I really want is great big rusted together piles of metal junk. And I think that's what I've got there. I think I've got enough colour in all the Junkbergs to break up all that rust and metal without going completely overboard. I've also managed to be able to use some technical paints, some Nurgle's Rot and some, actually, yeah, and some Blood for the Blood God in a few places to add a bit of life and a bit of slimy, oozy colour to this kind of stuff as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty pleased on the whole with how that's gone. And then here's my Cawdor Sumpsea Junk Scow done. Very basic paint job on this, I think. Nice little model though. I'm really pleased I've kind of like scummed it up from the very flat MDF kind of model, kit model that it came as, and it's now very much more Necromunda 40k, which is good. I could spend ages picking out even more details in the paint job, but it serves the purpose really well for going on the tabletop. I did paint tar around the bottom of the boat from a waterproofing point of view, and then make sure it got a sump trim around the bottom, because I haven't put a base on this like I have with other models. It's quite a decent size. It's not too big. The difficult thing with a lot of these things is you end up with some largish vessels. The fishing, I mean, it's not that much shorter than the fishing trawler, but the fishing vessel is much bigger and chunkier. This doesn't have any weapons on it either. I'm pleased that I've managed to keep one feature on it to keep it working, which is the landing platform on the front, which is cool. That'll add for a bit of fun from a gaming point of view. I've stuck this bit down so it doesn't fold completely down now, but that bit will come up against quayside things, which is quite sweet. So I'll have to dig out some scrap scatter terrain to try and fill it up a little bit for some games. Other games it will just work quite well filling it with figures. I have made this possible. I made this big enough, this tunnel through here, to be able to get past the garbage scow all the way through. Tight, but you know, you have to be an exceptionally good pilot to get through there. But, and I'm really pleased with how I've taken the orky trash piles and added to them and expanded them and covered them up. So they've made a really good base for my Junkbergs, but my Junkbergs have got bigger and larger and more spread out. Right, so here we go. One video to complete a piece of scenery. Who thought that was possible? I've enjoyed being back in the sump, doing this Cawdor Junk Shrine. A couple of things have come out of it. First of all, I am a little disappointed because it still has got a bit of a warp in the base, and it's not much, but it does really, really piss me off. And although when I put this with other boards, I won't know, you know, it won't show up too much. I'll know. It'll really, really annoy me. And it is something that's just actually, when you work with these materials, sometimes completely unavoidable. Nothing you can do about it. I've enjoyed making this model for a couple of reasons. I liked taking the components and expanding and losing them, making them bigger. And I've enjoyed the narrative that's come out of making this particular piece of terrain. Compared to some the terrain boards are made, it doesn't look that much, I don't think. You know, it's kind of small. But sometimes you have to make scenery that isn't completely massive and over the top. Even compared to the Fisher Scum Island, which takes up most of this 2-foot board, this one doesn't. There's quite a lot of water, which is good because I haven't made other water boards yet, and I want to be able to manoeuvre vehicles around and even use some kind of Sump Sea scatter terrain. So from that point of view, it's pretty good. I enjoyed the narrative because I was just going to do what I've done before, which is build another set of kind of
hovels and you know, places where people in the Underhive live. I've got a thing about, you know, where these poor souls actually spend their time and live and that kind of thing. But as I was building and as I was finding stuff and digging through the cack, I really liked the idea of changing this into not necessarily where these Cawdor live. I just think they kind of like kip down and sleep wherever they can and get comfy in a corner. I enjoyed the idea of turning this into a shrine. So this kind of like bridged area over here then becomes a bit of a kind of like shrine to whoever they really kind of worship. Who knows down in the Underhive? Are they really into the Emperor cult? But yeah, that's pretty cool. I've been able to reference some of my other models in here, like the Palanites with one of their helmets on top of the shrine there, which is pretty cool. And I've enjoyed the challenge of making different flat playable surfaces in this kind of like random pile of Underhive cack. So there are still a lot of gaming possibilities with this model. And then of course building the garbage scow that goes with it will add even more. I mean, it can be part of just permanently put in place kind of like thing, so it just adds to it and extends out on the board, because it could just sit there thus and have its ramped down, and that builds that much more space that's run around and playable on it. But of course it also would be a movable kind of thing, it's a movable feast, and it can move around and be used to play. Probably gonna have to start coming up with some rules for ships and boats and things out on the sump, but you know, hey ho. But yeah, so I'm really quite pleased with this. It's a nice way to get back down to the Underhive and onto the Sump Sea. It's been a very complicated summer for me this year, and in fact this week while I've been building this, my wife has had COVID. She still has got COVID, and she is really bloody poorly, which has meant that I've had to kind of be nursemaid to her, look after the puppy, and try and get a model made. So yeah, my wife's double jabbed as well. If you are not vaccinated and you have the opportunity to get vaccinated, go and get vaccinated, for heaven's sake. You know, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is you can still actually get COVID. My wife's perfect proof of that. But I haven't seen a state of her this week. Blimey. If she hadn't been double vaccinated, she would totally be in hospital. So from that point of view, look after yourself. Wear a mask. Don't be a dick. Get a vaccination. Keep playing Necromunda. Keep watching my videos. Subscribe to this channel. Leave comments down below. Don't talk about COVID. I'm not interested in your opinions. This is my channel. Stick to the models. If you like this model, tell me what you think. Let me know whether you think I should have gone further with the paint job, because I've got to confess I kind of gave up a lot with the paint job. Got enough paint on it. Let me know if you've got other ideas for other kind of like, say, faction related Sump Sea boards that I could make. Leave comments down below. If this is the first one on my Necromunda build you've seen, go back and watch all the others. Subscribe first, then go back and watch all the others. And then seriously, if you really do love what's going on this channel and you do want to support it, then do please consider signing up to my Patreon, patreon.com/McAtheaBuilderWorlds. The first competition that I've run has been won, and the first model that I'm making for one of my patrons as the prize of the competition is going to feature in the next set of videos immediately after this. So if you want to be involved in that, then do go check that out as well. Otherwise, apart from that, we're now going to get onto the sexy bit. You know, the bit you've all been waiting for, the bit where out comes all the other scenery. I'm going to put all this together, and I'm going to go and get all artsy-fartsy with my camera and get some toys out. I've even got some Cawdor figures, hopefully, to go on this, courtesy of my mate Ted, because I totally haven't painted mine. That's as far as I've got with my Cawdor figures. Ubiquitous Cawdor has only got one hand. He hasn't even got another hand. But there might be the odd Cawdor figure, and if that is, that's painted by Ted. So thanks, Ted. But yeah, let's go do the sexy stuff. And in the meantime, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time at Magathea Builder Worlds.